how to make your own beautiful buttons and a stand to display them on to showcase all your beautiful work. Right, this is what your pattern pieces will look like. Just wanted to talk about the pattern pieces. You've got all your buttons that you have to cut out. You've got your D-rings. This is basically just a placement marker, this one here. You cut this middle bit out here and discard it, so that when you have your back piece all cut out and the holes punched, you can put this on top and mark this inner edge just around in here, so that when you cut your cardboard piece, you have the exact placement where to actually glue it on here. But you don't glue it on until you've sewn on your D-rings. But that's the most important part. This here gives you the correct placement for where to glue on your cardboard bit. The foam bit can be like a 2 or 3 millimeter exercise mat that you just cut up. That's what I did, and I just thinned down the edges. And that gets stitched to the back of this, so you don't have to glue it to the back of this, and you don't need a placement marker because the holes give you where to actually attach it on the back. So nice and easy. So no, not a lot of pieces, and it's quite quick to actually make and sew up. So here's a quick look at the pieces. The foam piece, the front piece, the cardboard piece, the back piece where you actually put the D-rings, and then that's the cardboard placement. And you've got the D-rings there, and this is just a quick look of the A4 printed out piece of with the buttons. But you do get a sheet of which will have all only 40 millimeter 4 holes, or a sheet with 40 millimeter 2 holes, or the buttons. Each one of these you get a full sheet of, so there'll be 20 pages, so you get a full sheet of this one as well. You can actually make these sewing the buttonholes any size you want. I've made them the recommended size that I got for buttons, and they worked perfectly on my little display stand. Enjoy! To cut out and all the buttons. Once you've got them all cut, there's the foam bit, the cardboard bit, all the buttons, punched holes and all, the front bit, the back bit, and the D-ring bits, and the edges all need smoothing. So once you've cut them all out, then it's time to check that your furry friend is still enjoying their day, then sit down and do all the edges. Now I know you can bevel the edges with a beveler, but for rounds I am not very good at that, so I actually just use a 180 grit that is taped to a piece of wood, and also a 180 grit that's a sponge, and I spend my time and I do each button on both sides. Took me about 3 minutes for each button, and I'll probably do it a little bit more once they've all been polished and ready for finishing, but in the meantime I like to do all the edges before I dye them. The sponge thing is really good. It does around, it goes around the edges of them, and you end up with a really nice look. So then I sit down and I spend time dyeing. It actually took me well over an hour to dye all these bits. Have actually done a completely separate video. I'll put the link in the description area of how I dyed all my buttons. I did them all a little bit different, and I just took my time. I had some I needed for a project, so I've got some colours in mind. Obviously I really love green because I've got a lot of green ones here. Once I've actually dyed them and left them for like 12 to 24 hours, then I do come and give it its top coat with Resin. The Resin just gives it a finish. I find it sets, this is the Resin now, I find it just sets the dye. I still use Tokonole on top, on the back and around the edges, but I like the Resin because I find that it gives it a gloss, and it does actually stop the dyes from rubbing or running, and I just love the feel of it and the look of it. Now with the Tokonole we will do the fronts, the backs and all the edges. I just rub a bit onto the top, then I rub a bit onto the back. I put plenty around the edges and then rub it with my hands. I do use a cloth and then I use the wooden edge burnisher and it gives a really good finished edge. Now to do all your buttons, all the edges, tops and bottoms all probably need to be done. I know all the edges do. If you like to do the tops and the bottoms, well, now's the time to do it, and they come out looking fantastic. Just look at these. I am so pleased with the finish. Next step will be doing all the stitching holes around some of them. You don't have to do these stitching holes. This is totally optional. I just like to have a little bit of an extra option, so I thought I'd give it a go. But you don't have to do that. You can just do them without the stitch holes around the edges. I've done a separate video for the different stitches that I've done around the buttons because it would have taken me too long to actually show it in this video, to make the video too long. So check out my other videos for the stitching patterns for each of the different buttons. Like I said before, this is totally optional. You don't even have to do these holes or any stitching around your buttons. It's just to give it a different look or another option. Here's a quick look at the 5 different stitches that I used around my buttons. I am really pleased with the outcome. These buttons have been made with 2.5mm vegetable tan leather. Just thought I'd mention again that you can check out my other videos and see how I do each of these stitches, just to make it easier if you actually like the look of them. We're starting on the display stand, so you just want to sew on your D-rings onto the back, just as I am doing here. Nice and simple and pretty quick. Now that's done, you're on to the next step, which is gluing on your cardboard piece onto the back. I like to glue it because I find that it's a lot firmer and you end up with a really nice flat back. And this is 1.5mm cardboard. Right, so we've got the front piece here and then we've got the sponge piece. Now the sponge piece is just a piece of exercise mat, which I've actually thinned down the edge. I just thinned the edge down. I actually sanded it down, but you can thin it down anyway, which you don't actually have to use one of these bits if you don't want to, but I like on the edge when this is on top here and it gets stitched along here, you end up with like a little bevel in there, and I like that look. That's the reason that I'm putting the spongy bit in. Okay, so we put the front on top of the spongy bit and we find the right holes. There we go, that's all the right way. I've got these are extra buttons that I did that I'm going to use for something else. These are the buttons I'm going to have here on this display stand. There's one that's gone off. So what we do is we work out how we want them displayed. I'm going to put these ones down here like this. So these are the 4 hole buttons that I've actually edged nicely. These are the 2 hole buttons that I have edged nicely. And the 2 hole buttons, which are just plain, but they've got nice lines on them. But they're the ones that I have not done any edging around. So we put them in order like this. So this is how I am going to have them. So you sew them on. I'm actually going to sew them on through this layer here. So sew it on through here, through the holes in here, through the holes in here, and knot it at the back. and do a couple like I'm actually sewing on a button. And I will do that with all of them, but I'll take them out the way to start with. Right, to hold the pieces together I use these little pin clip things, because otherwise they just move around and it gets really frustrating. So to be able to pin them together is really handy, just to hold them in the right place. I suppose the next thing is to work out what you want to actually sew your buttons on with. Are you just going to use a red thread, a blue thread like what I've put on here, this one here, I think I'd quite like a red thread on here, so I might actually sew that one on first. Quite like a red thread on there, so I've got a red thread here. It looks like. How nice is that? So that's the first one, and then I'll just knock this off here. Nobody's going to see it, it's going to be covered. I'm not even going to melt the ends, I'm just going to leave it like that. So there's that one, and I'm really pleased with that. So we'll do the next one here. Now the reason this has actually got a stitch around it is because I dyed the wrong one, but I have to put it here anyway because it's a matching colour, but you know, we all make mistakes.
Whispered soft like a lover's sweet sigh. I caught the scent of jasmine as we
now just carry on and sew on all your buttons in the places you would like them. Just tie them up on the back. Once you have a nice line of them, you can sort of get an idea. I did a crisscross on the 4-hole buttons, but you can sew them on any which way you like. And then the 2-hole buttons, well, there's really only one way to sew them on. Enjoy, have fun setting up your display and seeing how it turns out. I must say I'm really pleased with the way my setup has come out with the green, yellow, blue and red buttons. I'm really pleased I did this setup, and now it's just time to attach the front piece to the back piece, and I use these little clip things again just to make life that little bit easier. Now you can actually just sew 2 lines around. I'm doing a crisscross sort of to match the 4-hole button, but you can actually attach the front to the back any way you like. The cardboard on the back keeps the display nice and flat. The sponge that's attached to the back of the front, that gives it a nice 3D sort of standout look, and it's really actually a nice thickness too. It's a good display stand rather than having something that looks like a block of wood or a piece of cardboard. So yes, I really enjoyed doing the crisscross around the edge, but feel free to do the finishing touch any which way you would like and get the look you want to achieve. Well, that was the right choice. I am really pleased with this red crisscross around it. There's probably could have been another stitch holes on each because I've got a few crisscrosses and a couple of lines at each end. But never mind, I'm really pleased with the outcome. It is a really good finish. And my extra buttons that I made, oh my goodness, they are going to come in handy for when I have a show and display my buttons. It's good to have some that people can touch and feel and then ask for their own designs.